So at the beginning of the year, I said I want to review a couple of big box office bombs that I actually kind of like. And 1992 gave us a sci-fi action movie starring Emilio Estevez, Mick Jagger, Rene Russo, and Anthony Hopkins. This is Freejack. In the year 1991, auto racer Alex Furlong is snatched a split second before a fatal explosion and brought 18 years into the future by a group of high-tech bounty hunters led by the dangerous Vicendak. In this future of heavy pollution and a depleted ozone layer, the healthy body of Furlong is the perfect vessel for an ailing rich man of the Canlis Corporation to have his mind transferred into. However, Furlong escapes into this violent world where Freejacks have no rights and a hefty bounty is placed on his head. Being betrayed by his former manager Brad and struggling to gain the trust of his former girlfriend Julie Redland, Alex Furlong must find a way to survive endless dangers, but also discover who exactly hijacked him through time before he is either killed or has his mind obliterated forever. So as with many box office bombs throughout history, Freejack comes to us in the month of January, released in 1992 on an estimated budget of about $30 million, earning back only about $17 million at the box office, and probably not garnering a whole lot on home video to even possibly remotely garner a profit for this film. And it's kind of easy to see why, because conceptually the film is very heavily flawed. There's a lot of cliche sci-fi tropes in this film. But you know what, I grew up on this film throughout the 90s on television and video, and it really connected with me at an early enough age before I really got analytical and critical about films to really enjoy the film on a certain level, and maybe takes that kind of connection with the film to really enjoy it as much as I do. But there's a lot of stuff I'm going to definitely get into that is very flawed type of stuff throughout this whole film. And it's kind of an interesting type of thing where this film definitely feels like it's a very well polished film, at least on a lot of technical levels, but also comes off as a rather cheesy sci-fi flick. I mean, there are a lot of, like I said, sci-fi cliches with like the dark dystopian future with the pollution and the downturns of economic standings and everything. A lot of stuff just feels very derivative of other sci-fi flicks. Some of them are not all that great. Watching this film again recently for this review, I kind of got slight allusions to like Highlander 2 with the ozone layer depletion and the dark pollution and everything, and even get a little sense of the alternate 1985 from Back to the Future Part 2 with the dark militaristic type of stuff going on and all that kind of stuff. Really does feel derivative for a lot of the runtime, but I do feel like the film, after a certain point, really kind of grows into its own type of thing in a certain way that really kind of just starts to fill itself out a little bit better. Kind of once it builds the characters up to a certain point, gets the momentum of the story going, really kind of just forges a little bit more of its own identity in a certain way. But Freejack definitely feels like a very dated early 90s type of sci-fi film, sort of in the realm of Lawnmower Man or like Highlander 2, or even stuff on television like the William Shatner Tech Wars series and everything. Certain things, the aesthetics of the whole thing, some of the not so great visual effects, which I'll get into a lot more later on. Everything feels very dated to the early 90s. A lot of different things just make it feel very much of that time. And it doesn't feel fantastically ambitious in a certain way. It just feels, just like I said, very cliched and derivative in certain aspects and everything. And doesn't do all that great of a job depicting the future of 2009, which we're quite a few years past at this point. I always find it odd in certain, especially in like 90s sci-fi films like Time Cop or this film or a couple other films, they do a terrible job of predicting how cars are going to look in the future. Time Cop's cars are fucking awful in that movie, but this one just, again, it's just a lot more overly sleek design. It looks like something that came out of the Starship Enterprise, not General Motors or something like that. But regardless of that, they're just little short-sighted type of things in the film that just like, they're not pushing hard enough to be that. They're not trying to be Blade Runner in a certain way, and those certain things probably feel a little Blade Runner-esque. They're not going to live up to Blade Runner. And there are a number of unexplained or underdeveloped concepts in this film, such as You're never given a reason how the world changed into this dark, dystopian, polluted future in the 18 years Furlong was absent from it, because this is the world that has to be in order for the story to exist, for the mechanics of the story to operate. It has to be in this type of world where there's pollution and there's no ozone layer and people are ailing and sick and all this kind of stuff. So you need to steal a healthy body from the past to re-inject your consciousness into. For all this stuff to really function, it really has to exist in this world, and you don't get an explanation for how the world exists. And you never get an explanation for like how this spiritual switchboard works for a consciousness to be transferred into a technology system, one kept alive for a certain amount of time before it's transferred into another mind. All this stuff just exists for the story to actually function. There's not really a depth. There's not a substance to any of this kind of stuff added into the film to really kind of prop it up on something to make it like realistic, to give it a reason for existing. It just happens to exist, and that adds to the conceptual flaws that this film has and the lack of inspiration it has in all these concepts that it presents. And the film does have a very good cast, and the cast of this film really is what really pushes this film to be worthwhile, because I like Emilio Estevez. I find something very charming about Emilio Estevez on screen. He's not one of those actors who really kind of defined himself all that much in his career, or really kind of broke out and stood out or whatnot, but Charlie Sheen, his brother, always kind of got the big spotlight, took on the bigger roles and all that kind of stuff. But Emilio has always been that type of character, that kind of actor and everything, who's always been, has a certain amount of charisma, always been charming, always been kind of unexpected in a certain way, that you never really kind of have a great expectation about Emilio, but he always kind of comes through and it surprises you. He can take on a sci-fi action role and really carry his weight exceptionally well in this film. I think he does a great job in this film, top to bottom. That, again, he's charming, he's charismatic, he works all the little humorous bits in the film. There's some very quippy lines between him and Mick Jagger. There's a really great, fantastic chemistry between the two of them throughout the whole film. Emilio just does a great job. He's a great dramatic actor, really holds his weight very strongly on screen, holds all that stuff. He's not that big of a guy physically, but he just has certain something about how he carries himself on screen, how he presents himself, how he really kind of works with all the balance of dynamics and tones and everything throughout the whole script of this film. Just does a really fantastic job. He seems unassuming. He seems like the very type of average type of almost blue collar type of guy that you really don't think of like a Tom Cruise or Arnold Schwarzenegger or a Stallone type of guy who really take on a really heavy type of action role, but he sells it very well in the film. I find him a surprisingly credible action star in Freejack. And like I said, him and Mick Jagger in this film have the best chemistry ever. They are great together in this film, and just like this is that dynamic in the film that makes it so exquisitely entertaining in my view, because you got the two of them who are in this cat and mouse type of game and everything throughout the whole film, and it's this great thing where Mick Jagger's character Vasendak kind of builds this sort of respect for Furlong throughout the whole film, just like the guy who can outchase him, outfox him and everything, kind of evade him at every little turn and whatnot. It's like it's very surprising to him, and he kind of gains some respect for the guy, and they have this dynamic that just builds throughout the whole film that becomes very interesting. And Mick Jagger is fucking great in this film. I think he's absolutely charismatic as all live in hell. He is clearly relishing being the cool bad guy in this film. He is just looking like he is having a great time in every second of film in this movie. He is just great. He is funny, he is menacing, he's intimidating, he is everything that this character absolutely needs to be, dicked out in all this black leather and everything, and just having really just great interactions with everyone in this film. He just carries everything so perfectly. But then you also, this great thing that you got different types of bad guys in this film, because Jagger's the cool bad guy, the one that you're going to love, the one you're going to really side with the whole film. You're kind of rooting for him in a certain way. You don't want to see this guy lose, because you also got the great Jonathan Banks, who you saw in Beverly Hills Cop. He's great at playing villains. He's great at playing sleazy, fucking slimy ass fucking villains, and he is fantastic in this film as Michalak. Him and Jagger also have some great dynamics, some great chemistry in this film, because Michalak is just a despicable motherfucker that Visendak doesn't like. He's the backstabbing son of a bitch. And Jonathan Banks plays the role absolutely perfect. So despicable. So perfect. Just want to see this guy just get everything that's coming to him by the end of the film. And just like, there's some great payoffs with every single one of these characters in this film. And moving on from that, you got Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins, just his natural talent, the way he just holds himself naturally, adds a certain sense of sophistication and class to this role of McCandless in the film. And it makes for another interesting type of villain in the film that kind of adds that needed gravity and refinement to the somewhat silly plot that's going on here, because by the time you get to that third act, you definitely need a strong, credible actor to come in as McCandless and convincingly justify everything that's happening in this plot, because McCandless is the instigator of the whole plot. And Anthony Hopkins is definitely that type of actor who's going to add those extra layers of integrity and respect to the character that he portrays, and the whole storyline is going all around him. And I think Hopkins does a fine job in this film. He does not phone in anything, and in a lesser actor, it probably would fall kind of flat or whatnot. It just wouldn't really kind of hold the same weight it would. But since it's Hopkins, he has a great presence. He adds something more to McCandless and the film overall. And talking about people who add something more just naturally to it, whatever performance they take on, Rene Russo does a wonderful job in this film. She is beautiful, as always. And it's kind of interesting that the film starts out in 1991 and then goes to 2009, but she doesn't really look all that much different, except in kind of a more sophisticated, classy type of appearance. But even today, Rene Russo still looks fantastic. But on a performance level, she does a wonderful job, because Julie Redlin is not a weak or frivolous type of character. She is strong, with some emotional vulnerabilities. But I think her and Emilio have some very good spark-filled chemistry in the film. I think they have a lot of really good scenes between one another. They work off one another very, very well. It's kind of funny in a few instances in the film where they're kind of standing eye to eye, even though Rene Russo is about 4 or 5 inches taller than him, especially if she's wearing heels. She'll probably be a lot taller. So, but regardless of that, they work off on each other very, very well. I think they do a great job together. And Rene Russo just adds something more with what she naturally brings to the role of Julie. Wonderful performance, I think. Everyone in this cast just puts everything forth on a great level. They can commit themselves, they're passionate. Whatever it is about the script that is not all that great, performances make this film something to see, in my opinion. But there's also some good action in this film. I think the film has a lot of good, very solidly shot action sequences. Overall, I think the cinematography in Freejack is actually really damn good. It's one of the things where I said it looks like a very well polished film on a technical level in certain cases, and that is definitely what the cinematography, because like in some of the later scenes, like a little bit before the third act, before the climax of the film, have this long action sequences in this dark industrial complex and whatnot, and it looks very moody, very atmospheric. It looks great. There's some good suspense and tension in that sequence. And overall, I just think the film just looks really damn good cinematography wise. Just a lot of moody stuff and a lot of great action sequences that are shot very, very well. A lot of competency in how it's shot, how it's edited, how it's staged out. Just a lot of exciting stuff going on throughout the action. A lot of chase sequences, obviously, because it's such a cat and mouse type of plot and everything. I think the film just looks great in certain ways. Some of the production values are really high, and if some of the production design isn't all that great. But when it kind of falls off a little bit is when you get to some of the visual effects, which are largely very, very dated and not all that great. All the blue screen composites in the film are very poor. Man, these look very bad. I mean, for a film that came out right between Terminator 2 and Jurassic Park, this looks like a film that is very obsolete in its visual effects. It looks very behind the times in visual effects work. There's a lot of things in this film, visual effects wise, that just don't look all that very good. But there are a couple of really great matte paintings in some instances, and my hat's off to them, because that is a great art form that growing up in the 80s, really I have a great appreciation for beautiful matte paintings, a lot of different films and television. Those guys did fantastic work back in the day, and it's a lost art form in that type of way, because they just gorgeous work. But some of the visual effects sequences really seem very heavily dated in their designs, such as in the climax when they're really kind of merging minds and everything. It looks very, very early 90s in my opinion. It's very evocative, again, like Lawnmower Man or various other things where it's just like, it is being very ambitious. I will give it to that these visual effects sequences are being very ambitious with everything they can possibly do with digital effects, but they're not of a very high quality, so they really seem extremely dated even a few years after this. So in certain ways the thing has upsides, it's got downsides and technical qualities. The score in this film I think is very, very, very solid. I think it handles all the cues of the action and the suspense and everything else very, very, very well. I think the film on a direction level from Geoff Murphy is pretty damn good. The way he directs actors is fantastic. I love the angles that this film uses. Well, there's a lot of low angles used on Mick Jagger in this film that just look fucking boss. Another 90s term for you. There's just a great sense of cinematic theatricality in the film in a certain way that visually the film looks great. He knows how to direct the actors very well. Just on the conceptual parts of the script and some of the production design and the fall off on the visual effects end of things really kind of shows that they were pushing things a little bit beyond what they possibly should have at the time. But overall, it is an enjoyable, entertaining film. Like I said, the action sequences are really damn good. A lot of charismatic performances in the film. If you can enjoy a little cheesy sci-fi with some very good production values and some very entertaining performances, I would definitely say check out Freejack. I think it can possibly be worth your time. Hasn't been given much, hasn't given a Blu-ray release or anything that I know of. Had to look for the old DVD and everything, but I think Freejack has some entertainment value to it. If you can relax and kind of get past some of the derivative, cliched sci-fi stuff, I think you can have an enjoyable time with the film. Just depends on what your disposition is, but if you like some cheesy sci-fi and some good stuff that's entertaining, like I said, very, very exciting stuff in the film throughout the whole film. It's nice little payoffs at the end for all the characters. Really good stuff all over the place, I think. Some surprising stuff, some stuff's not all that great, but Freejack, before I go rambling on around in circles, I definitely recommend it to a certain degree. If you want, going with the right expectations, you'll enjoy it on a certain level. And I want to throw out a little thing that you might want to check out the guys at the Projection Booth podcast, who some time ago did a very lengthy episode on Freejack with a lot of insightful discussions and everything that I found very interesting, and you guys might also find interesting as well. You'll get a link below to their website and possibly the episode itself. So you can go check that out, and if you like Freejack or Emilio Estevez, or since Mick Jagger's in here, throw in whatever your favorite Rolling Stones song is, because I like the Stones a hell of a lot. I got a lot of their songs, love their stuff. But I like Emilio. I've seen him in Judgment Night and a couple other films. I've seen Elmo's Fire. Throw in a couple of good Emilio Estevez films, or Rene Russo, or Hopkins himself. What great films he has been in that you absolutely love. So, until next time, hit some like buttons, subscribe, hit some comments below. And September will be the anniversary month for Forever Cinematic. You'll get some special stuff from me. And the following month, October, will be return of Forever Horror Month. So I'll be back soon with some very special reviews. And take care. Bye-bye.